Karatea, welcome whānau to the War on News, your weekly sacred cow slaughtering assault on current affairs, beam live from the palatial Stratus news bunker, buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. If this show was John Campbell interviewing Ken Ring, the moon doesn't predict earthquakes, dipshit. And tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone, the death of public broadcasting won't lead the 6 p.m. news. Gang patch ban as pointless as Michael Law's dancing. If New Zealand was really angry at Gaddafi, why were we signing deals with him? Plus this week's Sex in the Super City, Wanko of the Week, and the Barack Obama People's Hair of the Week Award. Leading the War on News this week, brothers and sisters, who gave Jerry Brownlee a pair of Hulk hands for Christmas? Jerry Angry, Jerry Crash, Jerry Smash. What the bloody hell is he doing? Look, the sheer size and enormity and stress of this dreadful quake can easily get on top of people, and thank God for strident voices like Leanne Dalziel, who was prepared to speak up for those eastern suburbs. But what on earth is Brownlee playing at by wanting to smash down as many heritage buildings as he can? See why we shouldn't hand an enormous amount of power into the hands of just one person? The legislation given King Jerry from the last earthquake means when the stress snaps him out, he can carry out any crazy idea that pops into his head, including demolishing anything older than 2 years from the Christchurch landscape. I don't think the good people of Canterbury have survived 3 major earthquakes just to have Jerry go apeshit with his Hulk hands and start flattening the little that remains. Look, this dreadful earthquake is an opportunity to rebuild Christchurch into a leading city of the 21st century. The people of Christchurch deserve no less, and the vision to rebuild that future must be a shared vision. Having King Jerry making decisions on the hoof is not the kind of shared vision that can give us that rebuild. Brothers and sisters, if botany is a victory, Charlie Sheen is a shy retiring chap who enjoys flax weaving and pan flutes. Botany was supposed to be Nationals stomping their authority on this election with their supposed 50% plus public support. In the end, it turned into what Mana was for Labour, the kind of nil-all victory only soccer fans cheer ecstatically for. That the former National Party candidate had to leave under a cloud of corruption may have explained the nihilistic voter apathy, but Labour reduced their margin of loss from 28% to 21%, a slim silver lining perhaps, but the biggest shock to National was how well did the New Citizens Party did. Cameron Slater and Chris Trotter on Citizen A 2 weeks ago predicted the New Citizens Party would not get over 800 votes. Their near doubling of that number should have political pundits across the spectrum scrambling for a rethink. Yes, a thick-necked first 15 wannabe thug who merely lip-syncs party lines won Botany, but the deeper issues for National are the emergence of a party with unlimited Beijing funding who will eat into their majority across the board. Perhaps China's attempt at domestic politics in New Zealand might explain any American financial backing of New Zealand first. New superpower Cold War chess match in the Pacific? Who can say? Brothers and sisters, our war in Afghanistan that we never acknowledge unless it's to excuse the Prime Minister's lack of a response to purchasing luxury BMWs when a dead soldier is returned to us, wasn't really doing a very good job of winning hearts and minds last week, whānau. Eye-rollingly, our good friends the American Air Force thought 9 Afghan children collecting firewood was in fact a group of terrorists collecting firewood, and they gunned them down with attack helicopters. You know what I find perplexing about our war in Afghanistan? That we are fighting for freedom and democracy to prop up a corrupt regime that rigs elections? If an attack helicopter can target and missile strike children, then why can't that same attack helicopter identify them as children and not fire incendiary rounds into them? Doesn't it seem all the weapons research has gone into making the incendiary rounds and not the bit that identifies the thing you fire the incendiary rounds into? It's amazing, isn't it, whānau? Each bomb the Americans drop create 20 new terrorists. What the fuck are we doing in this war, folks? It's International Women's Day today. Give it up for our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, our girlfriends, our wives, our grandmothers, our aunties, our cousins who put up with so much bullshit within an economic cultural hegemony that forces them into being second-class citizens in their own country. As men, let's give thanks that they don't take it out on us by smothering us with pillows while we sleep. To the headlines, whānau. With as little media attention as possible, the government have announced TVNZ now only have to make money with no public broadcasting responsibilities whatsoever. So TVNZ is now effectively exactly like Charlie Sheen. Before National cripple the welfare state, they want to cripple public broadcasting. Who is going to ask hard questions when all the media have to do is entertain and make money? Why the bloody hell should taxpayers in New Zealand who already own TVNZ be forced to pay Rupert Murdoch to see that broadcasting heritage on Sky TV? Why would the government threaten to kill their own Freeview network to strengthen Sky TV's stranglehold over the banal? How the hell does any of this keep the media focused on holding the powerful to account and informing the public of what is the impact of policy? This government passes. But that's the point, isn't it, whānau? It doesn't. The government don't want an active public broadcaster any more than one wants an active tumour. They want to sell it to Rupert instead and have him distract us with wrestling and Fox News. There is effectively no public broadcasting on television in New Zealand any longer. TVNZ has increasingly seen their news audience as consumers rather than citizens, and when a broadcaster sees their audience as consumers and not citizens, then a down-market content formula is adopted by the broadcaster to select stories based on their rating shock value over the fourth estate function of a crucial media holding the powerful to account. This function within a democracy is vital for the healthy functioning of our democracy. However, this function has become increasingly sidelined with a myopic focus on entertainment uber alles. This Disneyization to make news entertainment is what we the viewer sees at the front of the house, while a management style of McDonaldization out the back of the house has stripped down the journalistic mechanics for speedy pat production. In 1984, 40% of the news on TVNZ was politics. After the viewer as consumer restructuring, that had fallen by 1996 to only 20%, with the other 20% now crime stories. If it bleeds, it leads, because shock stories about crime gain ratings. Post-2011, National intend to privatise TVNZ. Sadly, the poor job being done by TVNZ of being seen as a national broadcasting treasure means few will weep when it's finally hauled off to Murdoch or one of his ilk. The impact of that will have even deeper cultural and political ramifications, but they won't be seen until it's too late. Public broadcasting matters. It's a pity National and TVNZ have a vested interest in keeping New Zealanders dumb and in the dark. Moving on with headlines, whānau. It turns out the gang patch ban that was mindlessly driven through has had the exact opposite effect of banning gangs at all, so says the new mayor, who has managed to replace that crazy right-wing raw meat-eating law and order clown Michael Laws. And the High Court has followed that up this week with its ruling that the bylaw is unlawful and invalid. Michael Laws, who was recently attacking disabled athletes, now attacks the High Court as wrong. I love how it's never Michael, first-time caller, long-time listener Laws, and his knee-jerks that are wrong, just everyone else was stupidly not agreeing with him. But it wasn't just Laws who made a dickhead of himself over this. Let's not forget the political hypocrisy of ACT, who in their drive to push for more public flogging social policy betrayed every principle of personal liberty they once had. Brothers and sisters, let's be clear. I have no time for gangs or the problems they bring, but worse than a gang is a government that will arrest people for items of clothing they wear. Such a draconian state is not what our grandfathers fought and died for on beaches far from home, and we should never empower our state to that level of interference in people's lives. The gang ban patch was never going to work, and it's a pity the media never looked at their own role in allowing this type of idiot legislation to happen with such little criticism. Perhaps the media could reflect on another issue like denying prisoners the right to vote and ask if they've fulfilled their responsibilities on that issue as well. Moving on with the headlines, whānau. So if New Zealand was as cross with Gaddafi as we say we are, why on earth were we signing $30 million education deals with Gaddafi only 5 months ago? If we want to stop the head of Slytherin House, Murray McCully, from turning our foreign policy into a puppet on a string for corporate interests over human rights, then shouldn't we follow up our condemnation of Gaddafi murdering thousands of his countrymen by dumping the education deal Anatoly signed with the Libyan dictatorship back in October? Murray says the oppression on the civilian population by Gaddafi is disturbing and unacceptable, whereas 5 months ago it was sweet as $30 million. Our signing of education deals with a dictator is as ridiculous as Gaddafi's own Gaddafi Prize for Human Rights, which he has awarded to various dictators since 1988. It's like getting a gold star from Adolf Hitler. We should follow up McCully's limp response by dumping the education deal, because allowing the well-connected sons and daughters of Libya to frolic in the Shire while their head of state turns jet planes on his own population is a twee bit ugly and grubby. Since when could New Zealand's respectability via association be bought for a mere $30 million? Funny, are you feeling sexy? It's Sex in the Super City time. Brothers and sisters, the government has warned Len Brown that he won't get his trains because all money has to go to the Quake rebuild. What? Surely, with the multi-billion-dollar dent the quake has caused the New Zealand economy, the time to upgrade transport and unclog Auckland's economic blockage caused by traffic gridlock is the exact sort of project needed right now to take the economic strain off our second largest city from needing to provide economic growth. Why is the government using the quake reconstruction to justify blocking public transport they never supported? Reconstruction of Christchurch and rebuilding public transport in Auckland isn't an either or, it's a both. If the government want to find the money to do that, why not stop building pointless motorway extensions that, given the current oil shocks, will mean many New Zealanders can't afford to drive on anyway? Whānau, let's hand out this week's Wanko of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Wanko of the Week has to go to the audacity of the right wing crying wolf over the quake. Right-wing blogger and Wellington Bachelor of the Year, David Ferrara on Kiwiblog, is claiming that the left are using the quake for political advantage. I'm sorry, what? Who is threatening to dump interest-free student loans, cripple the welfare state, cut backs to KiwiSaver, and working for families for quake reconstruction rather than ask the wealthy to pay for it while begging Oprah and David Letterman for international aid that could be used in places with none of the infrastructure of first world city? Oh, that's right, the National Party. Nowhere was the sickening use of the quake for political advantage more disgustingly on display than in Jim Hopkins' column in the New Zealand Herald. Jim Hopkins, of course, is the only man alive who equates red-rimmed glasses to wit. If Farrar was claiming the left are terrible for asking questions and that the left are manipulating the quake for political posturing, folks, the left don't have a card to play on Hopkins. Hopkins used the 2-minute silence to go to a mine and uses the visit to argue why we need to mine more in New Zealand. Let's just put that in perspective, shall we? The left are evil for asking questions about the government's response, yet Jim Hopkins goes into a bloody mine for the 2-minute silence to write a column about why we need more mining to pay for the reconstruction of Canterbury? Sweet Jesus, folks. If that's not manipulation from the right for political gain, then Charlie Sheen is a sober, humble man who enjoys quiet nights at home with knitting and Scrabble. If you're keeping score at home, that's 3 Charlie Sheen jokes so far. The government are using the quake to ram through their most treasured ideological reforms, and counter-spin by their most precious acolyte online won't dampen the attempts by the left to hold the government to account for those manipulations. Let's end the show by handing out this week's Barack Obama People's Year of the Week award. Brothers and sisters, this week's Barack Obama People's Hero of the Week award has to go to last week's anti-Muslim rally by members of the Teabag Party who chanted, "Go home, go home, go home" to Muslims who were visiting a local community centre for a charity event. This is Elizabeth Eckford, who in 1957 had to walk through the very same type of white supremacist racist scum those Muslims had to walk through last week when Elizabeth became the first African American to go to Rock Central High School. It's nice to see that in over 5 decades, some Americans have not managed to evolve at all. The Teabag Party should receive the Gaddafi Prize for Human Rights this year. That's it for tonight, folks. Don't forget my new show, Citizen A, plays Thursday, 7 p.m. on Triangle, and replays on Strata, Sky 89 and Freeview 21 at 7:30 p.m. on Sundays. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter account and Citizen Bomber Facebook site. It has all the shows posted up online and allows you to befriend other like-minded citizens for romantic news moments. Good night, New Zealand. You stay classy, Aotearoa. Righto.